You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of personal messages that are attributed to God. Now, don't get me wrong, God is capable of communicating in any way He wants. However, the question is, does He use personal messages or quote words from the Lord as a general rule? It is not uncommon to hear, God-fearing Christians make the comment like God told me. In fact, not too long ago I had someone actually come up to me and tell me that God told them to tell me that I should go to Bible college. In I think a fairly nice manner, I smiled and I said, "Why did God tell you and not tell me? It seems that if God wanted me to go to Bible college, it would be just as easy for Him to tell me as it was for Him to tell the other gentleman." The thing that drives me crazy about personal messages from the Lord is really how flippant we are as Christians to just throw these things around. And worse than that is how easy we accept them. We have no test for them, and we don't seem to really care about the validity of the message. So I was thinking the other day about what happens when we do this, and I took it really to the extreme. In 1993, David Koresh had several personal messages from God that really led to the destruction of good people that were guilty of bad theology. His first word from the Lord was to the widow of the deceased Branch Davidian leader. The message he delivered to her was that he was supposed to take over the leadership of the Branch Davidians, marry her, and have a, quote, special child, which was supposed to be a parallel to Christ. With no regard to the validity of the message, she accepted his strange proposal and became the unopposed leader of the Branch Davidians. Unopposed, his next, quote, word from the Lord told him that he should be able to have sex with the children in the compound. Believe it or not, the members and the parents of the children did not oppose him while he had sex with their small children. They were fearful of rising up against a prophet of God, so they allowed Koresh, apparently in the name of God, to have daily sex with their little babies, which just is unbelievable to me. Next, God apparently told him to stockpile illegal weapons and to start the apocalypse. All of these apparent words clearly oppose Scripture and common sense, but because the Branch Davidians had decided to accept personal words from the Lord without any test, as opposed to testing them in light of Scripture, they really had no way to determine whether something was true or false. These words from God eventually led to the death of 79 people, including 21 children. I wonder if God told David Koresh and his followers to shoot the children in the head with the illegal firearms, or if that was just a decision he made on his own. Clearly, Koresh was delusional. But like Koresh, we do the same thing in the church every day. Maybe not to the extreme, but we still do exactly what the Branch Davidians do. We use personal messages as an indicator on how to run our Christian lives. And what's worse than that, we actually use those personal messages as indicators as to how others should run their lives. And is that really what the Bible teaches? I don't think so. God has given us special revelation to help us understand His moral and His sovereign will. We call that the Bible. Though we do see personal messages in the Bible from time to time, they're not the norm, and they're not the way that God communicates to people normally. You see that like with Moses. Moses did have personal messages directly with God, but then Moses delivered that message to the people. So the point being that most of the time when we do see personal messages, they're delivered to a prophet. And I'm just wondering if we shouldn't hold new prophets, these new modern personal prophets, to the same standard as the old ones. I mean, should we pick up and stone them to death if the, quote, word from the Lord doesn't come true? I mean, after all, I would guess that if we did do that there would be a pretty good chance that people would hold their tongue unless they were absolutely certain that the comments came from God. Greg Koukl, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, is the president and founder of Stands to Reason. He made an interesting comment on the topic on his radio show. One day I caught it on podcast. He also runs str.org, which is awesome. Highly recommend it. He said, we get angry at people for saying, "Oh my God," when we are doing something much worse by leading people astray by personal messages from God. I'm paraphrasing there. I don't remember exactly what he said, but that was basically the point. I think that's pretty powerful and convicting. If someone has a personal word from the Lord, you need to analyze that word with two important criteria. Number one, does the word line up with Scripture? I found that most words from the Lord simply don't meet this test. They're non-biblical, and quite frankly, they should be ignored. Had the Branch Davidians done this, they'd all still be alive, and those children would probably be in college by now, as opposed to in the grave. The second thing you should ask is, what am I supposed to get from the personal message? I had heard one person make a comment that God told him to stop drinking alcohol because it was wrong. My thought was, okay, well, the Bible talks about you using your conscience, and if his conscience tells him not to drink, then he's perfectly within his rights not to drink. However, what am I supposed to get from that message? Frankly, my conscience doesn't tell me that there's anything wrong with me drinking, so I simply ignored it. It wasn't important to me. The nice, well-meaning gentleman who told me to go to Bible college, I did the same thing. I simply ignored it. If God wanted me to go to Bible college, he would have told me, given me the desire. Or, it's up to me if I want to go to college. So I figured the best thing to do is to just smile, say thank you, and ignore the comment. So, personal messages from the Lord simply don't hold as much weight as special revelation, or at least they shouldn't. Unfortunately, in a lot of churches, that's just not the case. In fact, for the most part, they're very damaging. What do you think happens to people when they're expecting God to act based on one of these personal messages and he doesn't? A person feels let down by God. What about the new believer who hears these, quote, mature Christians talking about prophetic messages from God that they're hearing from day to day, and that new Christian doesn't hear anything? You start to question their salvation, and that's extremely damaging. These people start to question their salvation, and quite frankly, you're to blame for it. God has a very, very high standard for prophets in the Bible. And the reason why is because false prophets can be extremely damaging. So here's my request. Basically stop being stupid. Graciously listen to what people have to say and test it. If it sounds wrong, ignore it. If you are delivering such messages, please stop. We'll be very, very certain that God is telling you this personal message. If you doubt it, keep it to yourself. Now let me say one last time. I'm not limiting God. He can communicate in any way he wants. Frankly, I'm limiting you. Stop making claims as a prophet unless you are willing to accept the consequences that are clearly spelled out in the Bible for false prophets. God does not try. If God tries and fails, then we have a real problem with our theology. If God delivers a message, there will be no doubt that it's from him. All right? Take care.